And good afternoon. You're listening to Ken Hudnall. This is the Ken Hudnall Show. Coming to you from our studios right here in exciting El Paso, Texas. Gateway to the Old West and the most haunted city in the country. Well, today is December the 18th, the 352nd day of the year. Just 13 days remain to the year's over with, and we start a new one. Holidays and observances. Bake Cookies Day. Make up a batch of your favorite biscuits. Experiment with imaginative cookie cutter shapes. World Arabic Language Day. Like a melody from a distant land, this language dances with an intricate calligraphy. Flake Appreciation Day. International Migrants Day. Almost every day is International Migrants Day. There's so many. National Regifting Day. Answer the telephone like Buddy the Elf Day. National Roast Suckling Pig Day. Mouth-watering centerpiece. National Crime Junkie Day. Wear a plunger on your head day. Especially if you're bald, just stick that sucker up there. National Twin Day. Zagreb Advent. Hanukkah, which goes on through the 22nd of December. The Festival of Lights. Time for family and delicious food and stories that remind us of hope's enduring glow in the darkest of times. Christmas Bird Count Week. Advent. Artes Mundi. Saturnalia. Began as a Roman festival celebrating Saturn. And of course, we have Blue Christmas. Famous people born on this date: Billie Eilish, Katie Holmes, Christina Aguilera, Brad Pitt, the one and only Steven Spielberg, Ashley Benson, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, with all that having been said, let's see what stories we have in the news for this day. Well, President Trump has dropped receipts on U.S. savings since former President Biden's Oval Office exit. He did a speech and rattled off how his economic policies have pulled America from the brink of ruin following President Biden's tenure during his primetime address to the nation on Wednesday evening. He said, "Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and our allies in Congress looted our treasury for billions of dollars for some of the silliest programs anybody's ever heard of. Drove up prices and everything at levels never seen before, and he's trying to bring those prices back down." He also said under the Biden administration, car prices rose by at least 22%. Gasoline, 30 to 50%, hotel rates by 37%, and airfares by 31%. And unfortunately, mortgage prices up $15,000 under Democrat rule. Well, he's doing what he can to bring it down, and he made another announcement that I thought was just absolutely great. It seems every time we go to the commissary on the base, we see somebody in line who uses food stamps. And that's a sad thing when members of our armed forces have to use food stamps. Well, he made an announcement of something he called a warrior's dividend. And $1,795, he said, will be a one-time payment. And about time somebody recognized the sacrifice of our soldiers. Well, been a lot of questions about who is Christina Paxson. That's the Brown University president facing increased scrutiny over the mass shooting response, because there wasn't much of a response. As the manhunt for the perpetrator of this shooting continues, it's going into its 5th day. The prestigious institution's president, Christina Paxson's facing mounting criticism for her response to the crisis. In a Tuesday press conference, law enforcement and university officials had very little to tell the public in regard to any leads or potential motives revealed by their investigation of the shooting that left 2 students dead. And Paxton sparked criticism online over an answer where she discussed gun violence. Since Brown University was a gun-free zone, the perpetrator knew nobody there was going to have a gun. And of course, we all know that when there's a sign up that says no guns allowed, that the perpetrator or the would-be perpetrator is not going to bring a gun because he don't want to break the law. Please. He's going to break the shooting. She said the primary point she wanted to make before they get to the question is that Brown is deeply committed to the safety, security, and well-being of their community. And she's been deeply saddened to see people questioning that. She said that the reporters and made questions about why the school had been unable to provide the video of the shooter from inside the building. She said a lot of folks on social media took exception to her comments. Well, they don't have a clue yet, 5 days later, who this individual might be. Well, the GOP has seized its own Democratic Civil War as the progressives jump into key 2026 Senate races. They're in shambles, according to the GOP. Without a clear party leader, now AOC thinks she's the leader, but I don't think so. But without a leader after losses up and down the ballot in 2024, progressive Democrats are wading into next year's most competitive Senate primaries and exposing deep ideological rifts that some strategists warn could alienate swing voters ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Republicans have celebrated progressives' firebrand Jasmine Crockett's decision to launch a Senate campaign in Texas. While President Trump had dismissed her as low IQ, Crockett has built a national audience, amassing millions of social media followers and name recognition to instantly reshape the race. Well, we'll see if anybody thinks Jasmine Crockett can do anything except run her mouth. We'll find out. Well, Border Patrol chief and a progressive mayor got caught on camera in a 10th Street showdown. Evanston, Illinois. There was a heated confrontation that unfolded Wednesday in Evanston, where City Mayor Daniel Biss, a progressive Democrat congressional candidate, confronted Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino during a street-level Title VIII immigration enforcement operation. It drew a couple of dozen protesters and quickly turned chaotic, according to a video and accounts posted on X. Standoff occurred about 11:30 in the morning near Green Bay Road and Dodge Avenue in the city outside Chicago, where an 11-vehicle Border Patrol convoy had arrived to detain multiple individuals. Eyewitness Mark Wehrmuller wrote that agents appeared to detain at least 2 people as the crowd formed. Video shared by Fox 32 Chicago reporter Paris Schultz showed Biss dressed in a dark tailored coat and dress shoes, visibly standing out from a bundled-up crowd, stepping directly into Bovino as protesters yell and blow whistles around him. Well, the problem is these progressive leaders in their ivory towers and with their security guards don't have to deal one-on-one with the folks at the street level that cause the problems. Well, President Trump gets first digs in at Biden and Obama with new plaques added to the White House Presidential Walk of Fame. He took some not-so-subtle swipes at his predecessor with new plaques below their portraits in the new White House Presidential Walk of Fame. Former President Joe Biden had already been mocked at the installation, which was unveiled in September. Trump used a photo of an auto pen to represent the 46th president. Now, there are 2 plaques that include Trump's nicknames for Biden. Sleepy Joe Biden was by far the worst president in American history. The top plaque states, Biden also a series of unprecedented disasters that brought our nation to the brink of destruction. His policies caused the highest inflation ever recorded, leading the U.S. dollar to lose more than 20% of its value in 4 years. Nicknamed both sleepy and crooked, Joe Biden was dominated by his radical left handlers. They and their allies in the fake news media attempted to cover up his severe mental decline and his unprecedented use of the auto pen, according to what the second plaque read. After his humiliating debate loss to President Trump in the big June 2024 debate, he was forced to withdraw from his campaign for re-election in disgrace. And he also took jabs at former President Obama, calling him one of the most divisive political figures in American history. As president, he passed the highly ineffective Unaffordable Care Act, resulting in his party losing control of both houses of Congress and the election of the largest House Republican majority since 1946. That's according to the first plaque. Well, Republicans have a generational opportunity to fix what Barack Obama broke. With Republicans in control, the time has come to offer practical healthcare solutions to drive down cost and improve care. And it can be done with a single, clean bill that the majority of Americans will celebrate and Democrats will struggle to justify opposing. The plan doesn't require a single vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act because the plan will simply bypass it. There are some straightforward provisions that will right what President Obama got wrong. Republicans should send it to the president's desk, according to the powers that be. The first is a catastrophic plans across state lines. Bring back the popular catastrophic only insurance plans. Obamacare made it illegal. Starting next year, any licensed insurer can sell these plans nationwide. No mandated benefits, no strings attached. Universal HSA eligibility and higher contribution limits. Health savings accounts should be for everybody, according to this proposal. Every American, whether on a catastrophic plan, an employer plan, a Medicare Advantage plan, or even traditional Medicare, becomes eligible for a tax-free health savings account. State high-risk pools and mental health block grants. Everybody wants to take care of those folks most in need, but we need to do it efficiently. Matching federal seed money will help participating states stand up or expand high-risk pools and mental health programs. And then we have price transparency and cash pricing. Every provider must post cash prices and offer every patient, insured or uninsured, a transparent cash option at the time of scheduling. They can run this through insurance for $1,400. You can pay cash today for $400. And in unilateral tax-exempt status for mega hospitals. And emergency care is provided, but there's going to be a bill for it. We've seen a lot of emergency care situations here along the border where folks who are ill, who are from Mexico or further south, manage to cross the border and get to the hospital for medical care, and the hospital has to eat the cost. Well, they want to end that. And true association health plans and purchasing pools. Any group, trade association, churches, alumni group, or even Costco's 40 million members can get together across state lines to negotiate rates for both insurers and providers. Bigger pools mean better prices, don't you know? And a 1-year subsidy extension. You know, if these were put into effect, it might help with the health care, or at least the cost of it. Well, medical examiners revealed Rob Reiner and wife Michelle's official cause of death. Their son, Nick Reiner, was charged with 2 counts of murder. He went to court Wednesday wearing a suicide prevention vest. Faces death and life in state prison without the possibility of parole. Bodies of his parents, Rob Reiner and wife Michelle Singer Reiner, were discovered at their Brentwood, California home December 14th. The pair died of multiple sharp force injuries, according to the LA County Medical Examiner's Office. Other significant conditions that contributed to their deaths, according to the initial report. Medical examiners determined December 14th as the day the Reiners died and listed their deaths as homicide. Both Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were found dead Sunday inside their Brentwood home. Their son Nick was located and arrested at about 9:15 p.m. Sunday. booked on suspicion of murder and transferred Monday to the Twin Towers Correctional Facility. Well, whatever you say, or whatever your feelings are about Rob Reiner, it's a sad way to go. Murder in your own bed is no place safe. Well, President Trump launches a massive Freedom 250 push to ignite America's 250th birthday celebration. He's kicking off America's month-long birthday bash, celebrating the 250th anniversary of the country's founding with a new nonpartisan organization dubbed Freedom 250. That's going to lead the administration's celebration, according to Fox News. Year 2026 is going to mark a celebration of America unlike anything we've ever done. And Keith Crack, a former Undersecretary of State from the first Trump administration, who was named CEO of Freedom 250, said he was personally grateful to the president for the opportunity to execute his vision for Freedom 250. By working alongside states and businesses and organizations across the country, Freedom 250 is going to reignite the pioneering spirit that defines America, strengthen the foundation for the next 250 years of independence, opportunity, and freedom. Now, the Trump administration has ramped up key border security moves that is expected to run over 1,400 miles. That awarded 5 new contracts to help continue building a high-tech smart wall along the southern U.S.-Mexico border in Texas and Arizona, bringing the total spend on constructing the border barrier to $8 billion. In total, when completed, the border wall is expected to include 1,418 miles of new primary smart wall, 536 miles of a waterborne barrier system, and 708 miles of secondary border wall. About 536 miles of U.S.-Mexico border without a barrier be covered by detection technology due to unfavorable terrain or remoteness or of location. That's according to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Meanwhile, the CBP is also deploying roughly 549 miles of technology in locations that previously constructed barriers, according to the agency. Is that going to stop folks from illegally crossing the border? Probably not, but at least it's going to cut down the numbers. Well, the Vatican's confirmed the resignation of Cardinal Timothy Dolan, announcing a new Archbishop for New York. The Vatican Thursday, I guess that's today, accepted the resignation of Cardinal Timothy Dolan and announced that Bishop Ronald Hicks of Joliet, Illinois, become the next Archbishop of New York. It's a breaking story that's there'll be more updates as time goes on. Well, the Brown University shooting reveals a major gap in Providence's $1 million real-time crime center. The shooting exposed a major gap for a recently opened real-time crime center in Providence that cost over $1 million to build, but didn't include surveillance video from the college campus. If you'll remember, in a class, 2 people were killed, 9 others were injured. The shooting took place about 4 p.m. Saturday at the Barras and Holly Engineering Building. Officials said a person of interest was initially arrested, but later released after evidence didn't indicate he was involved. Muhammad Aziz Murzokov and Ella Cook were killed in Saturday's shooting. Cook, 19, was the vice president of Brown University College Republicans. In August, the city of Providence, where Brown University is located, announced that it had launched a real-time crime center, had access to hundreds of surveillance cameras, but unfortunately none at the Ivy League institution, which didn't accomplish anything when push came to shove. Well, Patriots owner Robert Kraft has revealed he's given nearly $1 billion to charity over decades of philanthropic work. He's a longtime owner of New England Patriots, spent decades building a football dynasty. Off the field, he's also worked to help build a philanthropic legacy. He told Fox News' Bill Hemmer he's given nearly $1 billion to causes he cares about over the course of his career. He's 84 years old, said he's used his platform to take on issues important to him, including healthcare, prison reform, and combating anti-Semitism. He said he was blessed with great parents. They taught him values, how lucky we are to be in this country. and how we had an obligation to look out for our fellow citizens. Unfortunately, most folks don't seem to think that. Well, the question that's come to light is, can Maduro survive as President Trump's oil pressure campaign has hit his regime's weak spot? For years, Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro has defied predictions of collapse. Sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and formal and internal unrest has failed to unseat him. But the latest escalation by the Trump administration, including the seizure of a Venezuelan crude tanker and enforcement of a blockade on sanctioned vessels, has hit the regime where it's most vulnerable, its oil trade. Melissa Ford Maldonado, director of the Western Hemisphere Initiative at the America's First Policy Institute, told Fox News that while the timeline and outcome remain uncertain, the regime's dependence on oil leaves it uniquely vulnerable. One thing is clear, the Maduro regime can't sustain itself without oil revenue. Well, former NFL punter Chris Cluey says a bill criminalizing sex change operations for minors is basically what the Nazis did. Now, quite frankly, I've never seen anything that says that was an issue during the 40s. But, you know, these leaders of public opinion, with our modern education, if they can't find evidence to support it, they just make it up. He said he went on quite a rant. And the bill he's talking about is in the House. He says, F every one of these a-holes. Once again, this is literally what the Nazis did. Well, I can't find evidence to support it. Well, the epicenter of fraud. Minnesota's empty stomachs, fake autism therapy, and a scandal that could top $2 billion is leading the news in Minnesota. Officials and prosecutors there are warning that the state's facing an unprecedented fraud crisis in its social service programs, with losses potentially reaching as high as $2 billion, according to those who've investigated the cases. Now, according to Republican State Senator Michael Cruen, Minnesota's long been aware of the problem, but didn't do anything about it. It's got an epidemic of fraud, as the rest of the nation is learning. He said, we've known here in Minnesota for quite some time we've had a massive fraud problem. And it's turning out that probably Minnesota's the epicenter of fraud for the U.S. right now. The warnings followed the massive Feed Our Future case, one of the largest pandemic-related fraud prosecutions in U.S. history, and has been growing scrutiny of other state programs, including false claims related to the House Stabilization Services. Well, a lot of that money went into Somalian pockets and went to terrorist organizations. Well, Massachusetts has dropped controversial gender ideology mandate for licensing foster care parents. The Massachusetts officials have removed language from foster care licensing rules requiring parents to support affirm the LGBTQIA plus identity of children in their care, after the requirement drew a warning from the Trump administration in a separate religious liberty lawsuit. The gender identity mandate was challenged on First Amendment grounds and federal lawsuit by conservative legal organization Alliance Defending Freedom. In September, federal regulators at the Administration for Children and Families sent a letter to Massachusetts Department of Children and Families saying the policy violated constitutional protections, and they would be investigating. Well, on that note, we're going to turn to our topic today. We're still talking about conspiracies. A lot of folks have been sending me emails about the conspiracies they want to hear more about. You know, one of the area that I've talked about in some length and actually written a couple of books about, UFOs and Area 51. You know, the subject of aliens and UFOs and abductions has gripped people's attention for decades. There have been television shows and books and online discussions talking about the mysterious lights in the sky, secret bases, and strange events that might involve otherworldly beings. I just came out with a new book. You can find it on Kindle under Ken Hudnall. It's called Shadow Stations, and it goes into some length about secret bases that have been established across the country. You might find it fascinating. Now, we're going to look at 3 related ideas in this particular segment. What might be hidden at the famous Area 51, and the accounts of alien abductions across the globe, and the belief that humans have taken parts from unknown craft to reverse engineer advanced technology. Now, while science and governments often say these stories are not proven, a lot of folks wonder if we're alone or if powerful groups know more than they admit about what's going on in the universe. Now, Area 51 is a widely recognized name for a remote detachment of Edwards Air Force Base in Nevada. Officially, it's called the Nevada Testing and Training Range, often referred to as Groom Lake. The base was chosen long ago for its dry lake bed, which made a good location to test new planes. And it's located in a desert region far from any major cities. Even though it's not open to the public, the U.S. government now acknowledges, and I can't talk, it exists. But they say the projects there are simply linked to testing cutting-edge aircraft and weapons. Now, right on the edge of Area 51 is a little community called Rachel, Nevada. At the time I took a busload of people there, the population was 12. And they had what they called the Rachel Hilton, which was a bunch of trailers scattered across the desert. And while we didn't go into the base, we saw a lot of strange things in the sky above it. Before Area 51 was publicly acknowledged by officials, people living in the region saw odd objects in the sky that didn't look like normal planes. These sightings fueled the belief that something very unusual was going on there. The secrets around the site and the armed guards patrolling contributed to the rumors. A lot of folks ask, why would the government hide a basic military site so carefully? In my show that I did in California, which was called Adventure Radio, it was a call-in show. And unlike this podcast, it was done live. And I had people call in from Area 51. They said they were part of the internal security force, which was known, believe it or not, as Yellow Fruit. And they used to tell me all kinds of strange off-the-wall stories about things that went on there. Now, I thought they were high on drugs or just giving me a hard time, so I called a friend of mine who works at the Pentagon at the time. And he said, what do I want to talk about? And I said, have you ever heard about an organization called Yellow Fruit? And he lost it. He said, how did I hear that name? How did I know anything about it? And he just bounced off the walls. He said, that was a highly classified organization, and I should know anything about it. And I said, listen to my show, and you'll hear what I know about it. Well, one of the most popular stories about Area 51 is that area holds crashed alien spacecraft. The 1947 event at Roswell, New Mexico is sometimes linked to the Area 51. Some say the wreckage was transported from Roswell to Area 51, where military scientists studied the alien technology. And believers think that the people who run the base have learned how to power these ships, hover them without making normal engine sounds, and replicate the materials. Well, supposed insiders claim to have seen metal alloys not found on Earth. They talk about large hangars where strange discs are kept hidden from the public. And others go further and say not only do they have crashed craft, but also alien bodies. These rumors include tall, thin beings or small gray aliens stored in cold rooms. Now, these stories might come from secondhand tales or creative minds that spin an exciting narrative, but they do remain a major part of the Area 51 legend. Bob Lazar, supposedly who worked there as a scientist, has talked at great length about this. So what does the official information have to say? U.S. Air Force and others maintain Area 51 has been a hotspot for testing secret airplanes like U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbird, and stealth aircraft such as the F-117 Nighthawk. During the Cold War, the U-2 and other spy planes were kept top secret. Excuse me. They flew at very high altitudes and sometimes caused sightings of strange lights moving in ways people didn't expect from normal airplanes. When local residents or commercial pilots saw these lights, they had no explanation from the government. And of course, this fueled talk of UFOs, and now declassified documents confirmed that a lot of UFO reports in that region were linked to flights of secret planes. Believers in alien craft, though, say that while some sightings might be explained by the test planes, others are not. They feel that covering up real alien technology under the label of secret military research is an easy way to hide the truth. And oddly enough, the secrecy of Area 51 has turned parts of Nevada into a tourist attraction. There's a highway known as the Extraterrestrial Highway, dotted with alien-themed restaurants and shops and motels. People come from all over to stand at the gates of the base, though they can't go inside. Signs warn the use of deadly force is allowed if somebody trespasses. The entire mystique of Area 51 is built around what if there's more going on inside than the government admits. Well, there are security forces that literally crawl through the bushes. They were known as the camo guys. And they're there to make sure nobody goes into the base. While I had a busload of people there, and it actually took me 2 days to fill up a 50-person bus. People paid $100 a piece to ride the bus to Rachel, Nevada, and stay in a cold travel trailer in the middle of the night. And from a scanner that we had running, we knew the camo guys were hiding in the bushes watching. Well, skeptics point out that top secret locations are normal for any military that develops new aircraft. And the test site's remote location, the harsh desert environment, and strong security likely serve practical purposes. And whether you believe in alien spaceships behind those fences or not, Area 51 remains one of the most talked about military bases on the planet, with each rumor adding another layer to its mythic status. While reports of encountering alien strange visitors have existed for centuries, the modern idea of alien abduction took off in the mid-20th century. And one of the first famous cases happened in 1961 when a couple named Betty and Barney Hill said they were taken on board a UFO while driving at night. Their story included lost time and strange dreams and a sense of confusion. Later under hypnosis, they recalled tall beings examining them. Well, this case and a number of others set a pattern for countless abduction accounts that followed. A lot of folks describe a similar sequence of events, seeing unusual lights or craft blacking out or freezing in place, then waking up in a room where odd creatures perform tests or talk to them telepathically. Some say they recall it right away, others remember only after therapy or hypnosis. Now, there's certain typical abduction events that they all talk about. First is strange lights and missing time. And those who say they were taken off and talk about seeing bright lights overhead or hearing a humming sound. And the next thing they know, hours have passed, but they can't recall what happened during those missing hours. Then they talk about medical procedures. A lot of folks claim they were examined on a table. They describe needles and scanners or body fluid samples being taken. Some even say implants were placed inside their bodies. And then they talk about communication with these beings. Beings involved are often described as greys with large eyes and small bodies and thin limbs. Some reports, though, involve other forms like reptilian figures or tall human-like shapes with blonde hair. These beings rarely speak, using telepathy instead. And then after the experience, the person might find themselves back in their own car or bed or wherever they were before the event started. Sometimes they have minor injuries, strange marks on their skin, or other odd signs they can't explain. And folks who support the abduction ideas say that many abductees show real signs of stress and anxiety and even post-traumatic stress disorder. They point to physical marks or leftover implants as evidence something truly happened. Some also mention the missing fetus syndrome, where women who believe they were pregnant suddenly aren't. They think the fetus was taken during the abduction. Well, skeptics suggest simpler explanations, of course, dream states, hallucinations, or the power of suggestion while under hypnosis. And it could be that some individuals are mixing real memories with fantasies or nightmares. Others note that mysterious markings can come from normal events that the person doesn't remember, scratches in their sleep, things like that. Strange lumps under the skin might be harmless cysts. Other factors that once the idea of alien abduction became part of the pop culture, people might unconsciously recall details that match famous stories. Well, in spite of that, abduction tales keep coming from all over the world. Groups exist that support abductees, offering a place to share their experiences without ridicule. Whether these stories are real encounters or misinterpretations of other experiences, they show how deep our interest is in beings from beyond the earth, and how frightened or curious we can be about the possibility of actually meeting them. And of course, reverse engineering means taking something apart to find out how it works and using that knowledge to build a new device. And if a UFO did crash on the Earth, as stories claim, governments or private groups might try to copy the craft's technology. Might involve advanced propulsion systems, new metals, or energy sources that don't match our known science. Believers say that's exactly what's happening in secret labs. Some said to be at Area 51 and other hidden sites. And in shadow stations, I wrote about a number of hidden sites. They think certain breakthroughs in aviation or electronics might come from studying the alien craft. For example, some point to the sudden appearance of stealth technology or fiber optics in past decades. They suggest these inventions are linked to alien materials. Scientists say these technologies have natural origins and follow normal research paths, but conspiracy theorists remain doubtful. Over the years, individuals claiming to have worked in secret facilities have come forward. We've had people talk about being part of crash retrieval teams. Groups that allegedly arrive at the site of a UFO crash quickly, gather the wreckage, and transport it to secure locations. According to these accounts, the world rarely hears of these incidents because they're all covered up. Exotic propulsion methods. Witnesses claim the craft don't use traditional jet engines, but rely on gravitational anti-gravity drives, which allow them to move silently and perform impossible maneuvers. And there's this discussion of unusual alloys. Some mention metals that can change shape or return to their original form when bent. And others talk about materials that can block all forms of radiation, or that are lighter and stronger than anything humans can produce in a regular factory. Well, Bob Lazar, as I mentioned earlier, is a famous example of somebody who came forward in the late 80s saying he'd worked near Area 51 in a site called S4. He described helping to reverse engineer alien flying discs. He claimed the craft used a strange element to generate what he called gravity waves. Most scientists say Lazar's academic and professional records don't match his story, but it still fueled countless debates. Experts in aerospace and physics argue that making such leaps in technology would have clear signs, like massive amounts of research money and many scientists publishing details. In most fields, big breakthroughs show up in academic papers or patents. They also note that any machine relying on unknown physics would need new knowledge that would likely spread, even if by accident. Keeping it all hidden would be very difficult to do. They also point to the normal process of invention. Many engineers and researchers build on earlier work. Stealth planes, for example, grew out of radar technology developments over many years. Fiber optics developed from attempts to send light signals through glass. Steps are usually documented. People who doubt the alien link say the timeline for these inventions makes sense without needing extraterrestrial help. Still, the idea of reverse engineering a UFO fascinates a lot of folks. It appears in movies and TV shows and continues to spur curiosity about government secrecy. And folks tend to ask, if we really found something beyond our technology, would the government tell us? For believers, the answer is no. And that's why the rumor of hidden labs continues to persist. Well, from stories of UFOs and secret labs and reverse engineering, let's talk about the infamous Illuminati, the New World Order, and the so-called secret bloodlines. Frankly, power's a mystery. How do certain people or groups rise to the top? Do they work in the open, or do hidden networks decide the fate of nations behind closed doors? We're going to talk about three linked ideas: the Illuminati, the New World Order, and the concept of secret bloodlines ruling world events. Now, according to these theories, there's an elite group that's guided human history in secret, shaping wars and governments and even pop culture for their own aims. And while a lot of folks see these claims as imaginative fiction, a good number of people believe powerful forces do keep the truth hidden. So we're going to look at the origins, the arguments, and the reason these ideas remain so popular. Now, the name Illuminati comes from a real group founded in 1776 in Bavaria. That's a region in what's now Germany. This group aimed to oppose corruption, support reason, and challenge the power of the church. They're known as the Bavarian Illuminati. The group had some influential members, but was outlawed a few years after its founding. Officially, it was disbanded around the late 1700s. But rumors have continued that the Illuminati did not vanish. They supposedly went underground and survived in secret, recruiting important thinkers and leaders and business people. Over time, fictional works and public fear turned the Illuminati into a hidden society rumored to control major events. Well, modern conspiracy theorists say the group manipulates banks and political movements, even global conflicts. Now, there's a number of symbols supposedly connected to them. One of them is the pyramid and eye symbol. It's often linked to the Illuminati, and it's known as the Eye of Providence. It's an eye within a pyramid, like the one seen on the U.S. dollar bill. Conspiracy fans say this is a secret sign that the group is behind the formation of the U.S. Historians respond the eye represents the idea of a higher power watching over the country, not necessarily the Illuminati. Now, a lot of pop stars and celebrities are said to display Illuminati hand signals or wear clothing with certain symbols. People believe this might interpret triangles and eyes and even shapes made with hands or hints that the performer is part of the group. Critics see this as a style or a marketing choice, not proof of hidden membership. And from the G20 summit to lesser-known gatherings, some say the Illuminati uses official events as a cover for their own private assemblies. They're thought to decide wars and economies and laws. The idea thrives because powerful people do meet at events close to the public, such as the Bilderberger Conference. And while the official reason is to hold informal talks, conspiracy thinkers see these as part of a bigger plan. And skeptics point out that if the Illuminati secretly ruled the globe, we'd expect to see clear change of command or actual documents proving a single controlling power. And conspiracy believers say the group is so skilled at hiding the real evidence that evidence never surfaces. They also say that small slip-ups in public, like mysterious symbols or coded phrases, do offer clues. Well, most researchers agree the Illuminati as a historical group did in fact exist, but whether it continued and shaped global events afterwards is debated. Critics note claiming a single group is behind everything can be tempting because it offers a simple explanation for world problems. And those who oppose the Illuminati idea find it logical that the most powerful people would unify to guard their status and secrets. Then we have the term New World Order, used to describe a conspiracy in which a powerful few plan to form a single government or authority that rules all nations. And this concept, of course, has appeared many times in history, each with a slightly different meaning. After the Cold War, some leaders spoke about creating a new global order of peace. Conspiracy theorists took that phrase seriously, saying it was not about peace, but about control. And the theory says that laws and currencies and armies are going to merge into one grand system, giving the rulers absolute power over daily life. And some believers say that certain world leaders slipped the phrase New World Order into their speeches as a signal to those in the know. Well, according to believers, the New World Order, sometimes said to be tied with the Illuminati, uses various methods to achieve their power. First and foremost is the economic systems. Central banks, such as the Federal Reserve in the U.S., are seen as tools to manipulate the economy. By controlling interest rates, printing money, and lending funds, the NWO can start recessions or booms as needed. And then there's the social influence. Through schooling and media ownership and major internet platforms, they shape what the public thinks. Conspiracy thinkers feel that news outlets and big social media companies often share the same message because they're controlled at the top. And then we have wars and pandemics or major disasters that lead people to accept new rules or surrender freedoms. Some say the NWO either plans or uses these crises to push agendas that make their grip even tighter. Believers sometimes mention microchips and digital IDs or national ID cards as signs the NWO is close to total control. And they believe that soon personal privacy might vanish, leading to a state where individuals can't act freely without oversight. Mainstream analysts argue that global cooperation efforts such as United Nations are public and rely on agreements among countries. They also note that big events such as wars and pandemics have complex causes and aren't easily controlled by a single hidden group. And besides, leaders of different nations often disagree. Achieving a single government would require an enormous level of collaboration, unlikely among rival states. Economists also point out that while central banks can influence the economy, they don't have absolute power. A lot of factors affecting economic health, including consumer behavior, global supply chains, and random events like natural disasters. They also note if a small group truly did control everything, there'd be no reason for the frequent conflicts we see among the richest nations. Regardless, the NWO theory remains popular among those who feel current systems don't serve common people. Suspecting a grand design keeps citizens unaware of who really holds power. And then there's always been the long-lasting theory that there are secret bloodlines and elite families. A key part of these global power conspiracies is the notion of secret bloodlines. Some argue that ancient families have passed down their influence from generation to generation, arranging marriages, alliances to stay on top. And that theory goes that these families, sometimes traced to royal lines or wealthy banking families, don't just have money, but also hidden knowledge. Knowledge might be about esoteric rituals or mystic powers or even contact with otherworldly beings. And the phrase secret bloodlines can also connect to older myths of demigods or half-divine rulers. Some conspiracies and legends are taken literally. People suggest that certain bloodlines hold a different DNA or special ability that sets them apart from normal humans. And there's been a lot of evidence presented over the years. First and foremost has been family trees. Believers studied genealogies showing how leaders in politics and banking or big business are distantly related. They say these links prove a carefully woven network that rules behind the scenes. And then there's symbols and family crest. In Europe especially, noble families have coats of arms with dragons and lions and other creatures. Conspiracy thinkers see hidden meanings in these symbols, tying them to ancient gods or cults. And then there have been selective marriages over the years. Upper-class families often arrange marriages with those of similar standing. Conspiracy fans say this is not only about money or status, but also about keeping a sacred bloodline pure. Some also link this idea to claims about reptilian genes, though that's a totally separate conspiracy. Historians note that wealthy or noble families often in their area to preserve wealth and land. While this might create lines of power, it doesn't automatically mean there's a single plan to rule the planet. Genetics experts say that over many centuries, family trees can become very large, making it possible for many people to share distant relatives without it pointing to a master plan. Claim also about different DNA or mystical traits is usually dismissed by scientists. It's said to lack any real evidence, but those who believe in it argue that secret knowledge would let these families stay hidden. They see every major conflict or regime change as part of a grand design by these clans, handing power from one generation to the next. And there are a number of reasons people might embrace the idea of the Illuminati and the NWO and the secret bloodlines. First and foremost is a feeling of powerlessness. Modern life can be complicated, and events like economic crisis and wars or political turmoil can make individuals feel small. Living in a hidden group can bring a sense of order, providing a simple reason for why bad things happen. And, of course, there's mistrust in institutions. Scandals and corruption and lies by officials reduce public trust. Some then assume that everything is a lie and only a small group knows the real truth. And there are patterns and symbols. Humans have a natural tendency to see patterns. Once people suspect secret signs, they might find them everywhere, from pop music videos to bank logos. And of course, films and shows often use secret societies as exciting plot devices. These can blur the line between fiction and reality for some folks. And unfortunately, a lot of people firmly believe in all this. Well, turning from secret societies, let's talk about some very real scientific advancements that may not bode well for us. Talking about HAARP. HAARP. That's weather control and chemtrails and even cloud seeding. Weather affects everybody on Earth. Storms and droughts and temperature changes can change our daily lives and have large impacts on farming and travel and even safety. And a lot of people assume that weather patterns happen naturally, shaped by forces beyond our control. Others, though, believe that some groups have found a way to take hold of the skies. We're going to look at 3 of those beliefs. HAARP and its rumored power to control weather, the idea that planes spray chemicals called chemtrails, and the concept of cloud seeding to produce or prevent rain. We're going to talk about each of these claims and see why the people believe it and see what the experts and critics have had to say. Weather conspiracies often arise because extreme weather events can happen unexpectedly. Sometimes floods and hurricanes or even record heat waves make people wonder if somebody's pulling the strings behind the scenes. It can be easier to blame a shadowy program or device than to accept that nature is simply unpredictable. Also, technology is advancing quickly. Satellites and machines can now measure and beam or even influence some elements of our atmosphere. It leads some people to suspect that larger secret projects might have more power than we realize. Another reason these ideas persist is a lack of trust in official explanations. When governments or large companies aren't fully open about their research, it leaves room for speculation. A lot of scientific programs have complicated jargon that the public finds hard to grasp. If people see strange patterns in the sky, they might turn to theories that involves hidden motives. In this environment, stories about powerful research facilities or unknown chemicals and airplane trails find a ready audience. Whether real or imagined, these weather conspiracies continue to fuel debates about who might be controlling the forces of nature. We're going to start out talking about HAARP. Now, a lot of folks have asked, what is HAARP? It stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Began as a joint effort by the Air Force, the Navy, and other partners located in Gakona, Alaska. Its official purpose is to study the ionosphere, layer of the Earth's upper atmosphere. By sending radio waves up into that area, scientists say they can learn about how solar activity affects communications and navigation systems. The ionosphere influences the way radio signals travel, so understanding it has both civilian and military value. The facility itself is large arrays of antennae that beam high-frequency signals upward. It can operate with a strong electrical power system, which has led to speculation about what else it might do. Over time, different rumors spread that HAARP could cause earthquakes and mind control and alter the weather at will. The U.S. government's released documents explaining HAARP's goals, but some people remain unconvinced. They see the official story as a cover for something bigger and more dangerous. One of the most popular claims is HAARP can heat parts of the ionosphere to create or steer storms. Believers say that by aiming energy at certain areas, operators can change jet streams or pressure systems, and this could, in theory, redirect hurricanes or create droughts. They point to unusual weather events like sudden shift in storm paths as supposed proof that HAARP is at work. Some even suggest that entire regions can be targeted to harm economies or force political pressure. Critics tend to ask, where is the evidence that a single research station can control global-scale weather? HAARP's official range is limited. Even if it did heat a tiny region of the ionosphere, scientists question whether that small effect could lead to large-scale storms. Weather systems form from complex interactions between oceans and winds and solar heating, so controlling a hurricane would require enormous energy. Mainstream researchers argue that no known device on Earth can harness that kind of power. Another strand of the HAARP conspiracy says that by bombarding the ionosphere, the facility somehow triggers seismic activity below ground. Stories spread online after major earthquakes, with some claiming the timing matches HAARP's operating schedule. Geologists, though, emphasize that earthquakes come from tectonic plates shifting. They see no link between radio waves in the upper atmosphere and fault lines beneath the Earth's crust. Nevertheless, believers suspect that HARP or similar programs might have advanced technology you don't know anything about. A lot of folks who push these ideas reference patents or scientific papers that discuss manipulating the ionosphere for communication or defense purposes. While such research does exist, since militaries around the world explore new technology, experts say these don't prove that large-scale weather or earthquake control is real. But the notion of a powerful machine that can strike enemies with storms or quakes does remain compelling. Fits into a broader theme of secret weather weapons, an idea that surfaces repeatedly when people talk about large weather events with no simple explanation. Well, from HARP, let's talk about the chemtrails. Ever looked up on a clear day and seen a long white line trailing behind airplanes? Scientists and pilots call them contrails, short for condensation trails. They form when hot jet exhaust meets the cold upper atmosphere. Tiny water droplets or ice crystals appear, creating white streaks. And these can linger if conditions are right. But a lot of folks believe that these lines are not just water vapor. They call them chemtrails, claiming they're loaded with chemicals sprayed to affect the population, the climate, or even both. Chemtrail believers say that while normal contrails fade quickly, chemtrails last longer and are spread out to form a thin haze. They suspect these lines might contain toxins, metals like aluminum or barium, or even biological agents. They argue that governments or other groups could be spraying these substances to control the weather, test mind-altering chemicals, or reduce the global population. Photographs of planes with tanks inside are sometimes shown as proof. These are often images of planes testing weight balance, but they get misrepresented as chemical distribution systems. And of course, they could well be. Different people suggest different motives for chemtrails. One common claim is geoengineering, the idea of cooling the planet by reflecting sunlight back out into space. If the Earth is warming too quickly, some think secret programs might spray reflective particles in the sky. Another motive sometimes mentioned is controlling population by releasing chemicals that affect the mood or the health of the population. So others link it to controlling the food supply by altering soil conditions. None of these claims, of course, are backed by mainstream scientific evidence. And critics wonder why any group would spray chemicals over populated areas, including their own families and friends. They also point out if metals like barium or aluminum are sprayed widely, environmental tests would show large spikes in these elements. And studies of water and soil samples do not indicate unusual high levels that match the scale of massive spraying programs. Pilots and airline staff also deny seeing any separate chemical tanks or devices on their aircraft. But believers say this is exactly how a cover-up would work. Everybody's either unaware or sworn to secrecy. And on that note, we come to the end of today's show. We'll be talking about more conspiracies tomorrow. Until then, this is Ken Hudnall for the Ken Hudnall Show saying have a truly great evening.